Ma'am Yvonne, welcome to the Conversations with Rahim Khan. I'm just honored to have you this evening.
Great to be with you, Raheem. It's been a long time. I think you said 2012 that we last saw each other.
Absolutely. I'm seeing you after, I think, a decade.
It's too long.
Too long, too long, too long, too long. I've prepared a list of questions for you, and I'm very excited, looking forward to be asking you the questions. So let me have the honor of starting with the thingy.
Fire away.
Perfect. So, Ma'am Yvonne, uh, you were born in northeast of England. How was your childhood? And tell us about your growing up. The area where you grew up, where you started schooling and all.
Well, I was born in a working class area, surrounded by coal mines, steel making, and shipbuilding. So, all very heavy industries. And it was quite a macho patriarchal society that I was in, and where men went out to work in the mines or making steel or making ships. So it was all very heavy industries, and women just had very minor roles in when I was being raised as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a happy childhood. I didn't have very much, but we were all happy. And the big focus of everyone's interest uh, in terms of sport was Newcastle United, which was the football team that I supported, from as soon as I could walk.
Uh-huh. Lovely to know that. Lovely to know that. And when you started schooling, how good were you in academics? Any particular hobbies alongside with your studies?
Well, I was good at English, but I was very poor at science and maths. And I focused more on what I enjoyed and what I was good at, and sort of blagged my way through the rest, biology, chemistry, physics, maths,
Love.
trigonometry, all of that was just, it went over my head.
Very much like me.
Well, we're
Did
both artistic, aren't we? We're both sort of creative people, and
we are?
uh, not into triangles and circles and the
Well, let,
theory.
let me tell you, I was a big time failure in mathematics. I was absolutely a big time failure. Anything that had decimal numbers in it, decimals and numbers in it, I was so much zero in it.
Mhm. Well, I'm full of admiration for people who are good at maths, but I'm afraid I'm not very good.
uh, did you ever have any interest in art or music, etc.? This question comes to my mind because since you're from England, and also the 60s was heavily a Beatles mania era. Cat Stevens, Pink Floyd, Beatles, so on and so forth. So, did you have any interest or inclination towards music or any form of art when you were growing up?
I loved music. I loved listening to it, but alas, I could neither sing nor play. And yet I was very keen to be involved in the school orchestra. And I was let loose on a recorder and a flute, but that was disastrous. And in the end, because the teacher didn't want to discourage me, I was given a triangle to play. And so my big thing in the school orchestra was clicking this triangle every now and again. So no, I love listening to music. I can really appreciate music. I've got a very eclectic taste in music, from
Beautiful.
classical to rock to, all sorts. But unfortunately, I can't sing a note, and I'm full of admiration for people who have beautiful voices. And I heard you recently with all the people who were pulled together to sing the Pakistan national anthem, and
Yeah,
it was great. Well
I'm
done.
honored. Coming that from you, I'm honored. I'm honored, ma'am. I'm certainly honored. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Uh, Straight from school, you went into journalism. Now, I'm very much curious to know why journalism.
Well, I remember saying to the careers master, I want to be a journalist. And he said, very good. Now go away and we'll talk about this next year. And the following year, he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to be a journalist. And he said, you said that last year. And I said, yes, sir. That's because I want to be a journalist. And he said, don't give me your cheek, get out. And so that was the extent of the encouragement that I had from the careers master. I had begun to realize the power of the word and how people can get really happy, sad, upset, angry, outraged just by
Absolutely.
the written word.
Absolutely.
So that made me realize that it's a powerful thing to be involved with words, and that led me on to journalism.
Beautiful. As they say, the pen is mightier than the sword.
Absolutely, it really is.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Having worked for Fleet Street papers like the Sunday Times, the Observer, Independent on Sunday, the Daily Mirror, uh, an Express newspaper, out of all these, which one did you enjoy working with the most? And which was your first experience out of all these?
Well, I really enjoyed working at the Sunday Times,
Mhm,
and I worked with their investigative team, and that was really challenging and great fun. Um,
mhm,
but my happiest times were definitely at the Sunday Express.
mhm.
And it was at the Sunday Express, of course, that I went on my ill fated journey to Pakistan back in 2001.
I was coming to that. I was just coming to that. You see, 9/11 happened, and a few days later, as I read in your book, In the Hands of Taliban, which you gifted me as well, a copy of it, for which I'm heartily thankful from my heart to you. 9/11 happened, and a few days later, you were caught and detained by the Taliban, the then ruling Taliban. Before asking further, tell me why sneak in and how did you get caught?
Well, as you say, it was after the horrific events of 9/11, and the next part of the story was developing in Afghanistan. Very few
Mhm,
people could get travel there. So, about 3,000 journalists assembled in Islamabad and
mhm,
Peshawar and Quetta, and we waited there as the drums of war started beating ever loudly. And
mhm,
while I was waiting for the war to start, and it would, the funny thing is about a war, you can't just declare war and go charging in. You have to assemble your army, get your equipment there, so, you know, it takes about 3 weeks to,
Oh, really?
yeah, so 3 weeks, and I just thought, oh, I'm going to sneak into Afghanistan and try and find out what life is like for ordinary people living under the Taliban. Because I'm a firm believer in getting the story from the ordinary people. We always hear from the politicians. They're the ones who are standing in front of the microphone. But the best stories come from the grassroots. So I I sneaked in with a couple of guides, one from the old NWFP province and another, his cousin who lived in Jalalabad. And we went in with a group, and I, you know, set about trying to do some work to find out from ordinary people what life was like. And I was so pleased that I did. And I had a great story to tell, but unfortunately, after 2 days in Afghanistan, I was captured by the Taliban.
And what were those 2 days like?
The 2 days beforehand, I discovered that Afghan women, far from being shy, retiring creatures, are very dominant in the household. They're quite tough. And when they say jump, the men say how high. You know, it was interesting because the dynamics that we were told in the West was that Afghan women were oppressed and had a terrible life. The women that I spoke to were incredibly strong. They did have a tough life, that for sure. You know, I wouldn't, I don't think that I could settle easily in Afghanistan because the women do have a very tough time. But it's a very poor country. And what I also discovered was that there were schools and that girls and boys were educated. So this was a really big lie that the West was told, that the Taliban didn't want girls to be educated. You know, how I met a young girl who was training to be a doctor. Her college closed, not because the Taliban had shut it down. They just had no money. They ran out of money, and nobody is going to work for nothing. So the teachers went, and the college shut. So that was quite interesting. Another myth that I discovered was a lie. Tony Blair said that the Taliban was so evil they wouldn't allow children to fly kites. And that was a big lie. Children did fly kites, but only in the countryside. The Taliban stopped them from flying their kites overhead power cables or in built-up areas where if they ran across the rooftops and got overexcited, they would continue running and fall out of space to run and fall off and injure, or even worse, you know, kill themselves. So I realized that, you know, the Afghan people, and in particular the Taliban, had been demonized beyond recognition. The lies still continue. Of course, the Taliban don't help themselves, you know, by stopping or suspending the program for girls, senior girls, to be educated. And this is, I was in Afghanistan just a few weeks ago, and I could not find a single senior Taliban official who said, good that the schools are closed. I couldn't find. What I did find was a Taliban official in Kabul who showed me proudly a picture of his two daughters, and he said, and she wants to be a doctor and this one wants to be a teacher.
Oh,
And I
lovely.
did everything
Lovely.
in my power to make sure that they achieve this. So, you know, what people forget is that a lot of the Taliban are fathers of daughters, and they want their
Yes.
daughters to be educated. So where
Yes.
this block is coming from, I'm not entirely sure.
Yes. I'll be coming exactly to your recent Afghanistan trip. Although I totally missed out on writing this question for myself to ask you while I was preparing the questionnaire. But it's good that you've reminded me. I just got reminded that very recently you were there. If coming to your captivity, like you said, after 2 days you were caught. Now we'll skip and jump to your captivity time when you were imprisoned by the Taliban. Tell me, we all would like to know, during your captivity, what were your thoughts and the fears while you
Well,
were in
I thought I
captivity?
was going to be executed. I really thought I would be killed because I had bought into the propaganda that this was the most evil, brutal regime in the world. They hated women. I didn't think I would see the sun set that night. But throughout my 11 days in Jalalabad and then in prison in Kabul, I was treated with courtesy and respect. Now, people who don't like the Taliban get really annoyed with me for saying that, but you know, the truth is a constant, and I've never changed that story because it was the truth. To my surprise and relief,
Mhm.
they treated me with courtesy and respect. That
Amazing.
doesn't mean to say I wasn't frightened. I was terrified. I really thought that they would kill me. Every night I would go to sleep thinking, is this my last night on earth? Every morning I would think, you know, is this my last day on earth? I
Uh,
really lived in fear. But the fear was all manufactured up here.
yeah.
They did nothing to me. They never hit me. They didn't touch me. Uh, and although I was the prisoner, I had the key. They gave me the key to lock the
Yourself.
door. And so it was quite a weird experience. And so many people were angry when I was returned and said I was treated with courtesy and respect. This is not what anybody wanted to hear. Britain was about to go with America to war in Afghanistan, and you can't drop bombs on nice people. So they
True.
didn't want anyone coming out saying, yeah, I was treated well. So this prompted people to say, oh, she's suffering from Stockholm syndrome, you know, this where you bond with your captors. But the truth is, I didn't bond with my captors at all. I spat at them, I swore at them, I threw things at them. Um, I and they kept saying to me, why are you behaving like this? You are our guest. We want you to be happy. And I'm sort of thinking, why are you behaving like this? You're supposed to be brutal and evil. So it was a complete clash of cultures. They liked me about as much as I liked them. In fact, when they did release me on humanitarian grounds, they held on to other Westerners, but they released me. I really don't know who was happier to you know, them to see the back of me or me to see the back of them.
How was
We
the feeling
both
when
equally
you
happy.
got to know that you're being released? How was the feeling? How did your friends over there in the cell with you, the other captives? How were they feeling, you know?
Well, they didn't realize I was going to be released. I was told I was being removed from the prison, and because I'd been,
Because you were the ultimate prisoner from hell.
that's right, because I was the prisoner from hell. Um, I was locked up with some Americans, Germans, and an Australian girl, and they
Hmm.
thought I was being removed to be executed.
Hmm.
And
So
they
you were scared? You didn't believe them when they told you that you were about to be released?
No, I thought they're taking me out and I'm going to be executed. But you know, in truth, I just couldn't stand being locked up. And so, as crazy as it sounds, death was preferable to being a prisoner. And
Understand.
I don't make a very good prisoner at all. And I just thought if they're going to kill me, thank goodness that's the end of any suffering. And as long as they don't torture me and they just put a bullet in the head, that's the
Mhm.
end of it. And that is the mentality or the frame of mind that I
In
had. So I didn't quite believe them when they said that they were going to release me. And right up and, they drove down to the Pakistan border.
Mhm.
And when they said, you're free to go, I
Mhm.
still didn't trust them. I got out the people carrier backwards so that I could watch them, and I walked backwards watching them because I thought as soon as I turned my back, they're just going to shoot me in the back. Um,
uh,
so, right up until the point of release. But when I was when I met with the Pakistan media and they said, "How did the Taliban treat you?" I thought about it and I couldn't find a bad word to say about them. I just said they treated me with courtesy and respect. I think that the people who held me must have fallen off their chairs because I
I
had
know.
threatened them with everything. The Nuremberg trials and war crimes and the Hague and oh gosh, I threw everything at them verbally and physically. Um, but when it came down to it, they treated me well. And even though I'd gone on hunger strike, um, every morning, noon, and night they would bring food into
Right.
my cell. And in fact, that was the big torture, smelling this freshly baked bread and being able to eat it.
uh, I was reading your book. I've read it, I think, twice. Uh, I've read your book twice. Uh, you said that while you were in captivity, the constant bombing, the ruthless bombing by the US, that eventually made you start an anti-war movement when you got home, when you got back. Tell us about that. How bad was the bombing those 11 days that you experienced that? How was it?
Well, for the first week in Jalalabad, it was still the build up to the war. When I got to the prison in Kabul, um, and the bombing did start. I mean, I just experienced one day of it, and you can hear a cruise missile from 20
Mhm.
miles away. These were coming within quarter of a mile of the prison, and the prison was shaking, and I was terrified. And I don't know,
Obviously,
I've had
obviously.
calls before, but I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me before. I just thought, bombs don't discriminate. They can't tell
Yep,
men, women, children. They can't tell soldiers,
true,
nationalities. And I just
true.
thought, I'm going to get blown up by British bombs. And I'm going, there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. And it was truly terrifying. So I made this pact with the big fella. I kept having these conversations with God. And I said, if I get out of here alive, I'm going to join the anti-war movement. And I did get out early October, and by late October, November, I was speaking in front of about 60,000 people in Trafalgar Square,
Amazing.
defying the war in Afghanistan, which by this time was well underway. And, you know, we're hearing a lot about the Russians bombing civilians in Ukraine. Well, I can tell you, Britain and America were bombing schools and hospitals, and I saw this when
Yep.
I drove from Kabul right the way back down to the Pakistan border, and I saw the villages and the buildings that had been bombed. So this is war. This is what happens in war.
Yep.
There
Absolutely.
isn't a nice way to fight a war. And as much as everyone is attacking Russia now for bombing schools and hospitals in Ukraine, well, that is just what America and Britain did in
Absolutely.
Afghanistan.
Because I remember Tony Blair had, teamed up with Bush back then. And he was largely being criticized even by the general public in England. I remember Imran Khan, was a part of this rally. Hundreds and thousands of people had taken to the streets back then in London. I remember.
Yes, yes, he was. And you know, he's a very wise man. I guess we'll be talking, or I'm hoping we'll be talking about Imran Khan in this because I have got a lot of time for him, and was really so sad to see him ousted from the leadership in Pakistan,
It's a
because
sad story. It's a sad story. All of us, we were shell shocked that night, that evening. If now, 2 years after 9/11, you embraced Islam in 2003,
yes.
how surprised was your family, or were they not surprised? And how was the reaction basically from your friends, the media, the British media, the international media, and your family?
Well, I have always had a core belief in God, and I was a former Sunday school teacher. I sang in the church choir, and out of the whole family, I was known as the religious one. So I had this core belief in God, and I realized, having watched the Taliban up close and personal, that Islam, for them anyway, was more of a way of life than some religion that they picked up and put down on a Friday. So I realized, if I am to report with any authority at all on the Muslim world, I need to study this religion.
Absolutely.
And I had also given the Taliban an undertaking, you know, if you release me, I promise I will read your Quran. So
Yep.
I started reading the Holy Quran, and it was very easy for me as a former Sunday school teacher, because I understood the biblical language. I was able to go through it very quickly in the English translation I had. And
Lovely. Beautiful.
all of the prophets, they were all there, with the exception of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. They, you know, Moses was there, Joseph was there,
Yeah.
Abraham or Ibrahim, you know, all there. And
Jacob, Mary, and everyone.
yeah, so I just I was able to engage with it, and I happen to think that Christianity is a great springboard to Islam. So very soon, what started off as an academic exercise became, for me, a spiritual journey. And I began to move on this spiritual journey. And after 2 years, I was convinced that Islam was the next progression for me. And so I became a Muslim. My family weren't,
Alhamdulillah.
although they're not particularly practicing Christians, they were not happy with my reversion or conversion. A lot of work colleagues were disturbed by it. Some friends just stopped speaking to me. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
there was a big atmosphere of Islamophobia at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So anything to do with Islam was deemed to be fearful or scary or going into
Yep.
the unknown. So, and nobody could really explain it because I happen to think that religion is a private matter, and
Absolutely.
nobody knew I was a practicing Christian, and so for me to become a Muslim was quite a shock, especially when I stopped drinking, stopped smoking, stopped nightclubbing, and changed to a different lifestyle. I
I
wouldn't
know.
say as a person I've changed. I'm still the same person. I just, and I still pray to the same God. I just do it in a different way.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cat Stevens said something very similar like this.
One of my favorite musicians, by the way. I was,
Likewise, likewise.
yeah,
Same here, same here. And I
uh-huh.
was watching a very, old interview of your mum and you sitting together, and I remember her, praising Cat Stevens. Is your
Yeah.
mum still a fan of Cat Stevens?
She still is. She's not so much a fan of Yusuf Islam. She's a big fan of Cat Stevens. And
Yeah,
when
I remember her holding the T for Tillerman vinyl.
yeah, uh-huh. And trying to say to her, this is the same person, and he hasn't changed, and he still has that God-given voice. And I
I know.
know that the whole issue of music stirs people up, especially in our religion. But I just think God or Allah gave him that voice for a reason, and
Absolutely.
wasn't to be silent.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you enjoy an illustrious award-winning career, worked for mainstream British papers, you've also worked as freelance journalist for numerous renowned news outlets like BBC, TV and radio, CNN, Middle Eastern broadcasters. For them, you've worked as a commentator. You've also worked with Al Jazeera for their English language website, and then you worked in Tehran and as well as in Libya and so many other. You've also worked with the Washington Post, if I'm not wrong. How smooth, or should I say, how rocky has been your journalistic voyage so far?
It's been a struggle because once I embraced Islam and it became public, I was dropped like a stone. And the
Hmm.
BBC started calling me Yvonne Ridley, the former journalist. And
Okay.
I had to write letters to all the heads of departments at the BBC saying, I am still a journalist. I am not a former, just because I wear a hijab,
Hmm.
my head is covered, but my mind is not. Why are you calling me the former journalist? So it was quite tough. Um, I've always had a loud voice and known how to use it, and people tried to silence me.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
but again, I just took to my writing
Hmm.
and continued working as a journalist despite all the best efforts to silence me.
Right, right, right. In 2019, a Canadian educational institution nominated you for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh
Tell
yeah.
us about that. That was news to me when I recently read about that. I didn't know this.
Well, I was absolutely astonished to be nominated. But as if I ever get above myself or start believing my own publicity, I can always rely on my mother to bring me
Mhm.
back down to ground. And I said to her, Mum, you'll never guess what. I've been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. She said, nominated? That isn't the same as winning, is it? I said, well, I said, it's unlikely that I will win, and as long as Donald Trump doesn't win, I said I won't mind. But I said just being nominated and she just, wasn't at all impressed. Um, so I didn't, I didn't bother telling anyone else, and then it did come out, and it was people were saying, "Wow, this is something amazing." I said, "Well, tell that to my mother because she's not impressed at all."
Right, right. You sailed from Cyprus, if I'm not wrong, with 43 other activists in two small wooden boats. And then
Mm.
you reached the Gaza port on the 23rd of August 2008, breaking the Gaza siege and being welcomed warmly. Tell us in detail. Tell us about that achievement, and also the Palestinian passport and the aftermath.
Well, that was an incredible, epic journey. I went and I made a documentary about it with the filmmaker and
Mm-hmm,
musician Aki Nawaz, who
mm-hmm,
originates from Pakistan. And
mm-hmm,
he and I were probably among the very few practicing Muslims on board these ships. And I
mm-hmm.
remember when we set sail in the Eastern Med, I said to Aki, I said, how do we find Mecca? Which way is it? Because the ship keeps bobbling around.
Yep.
And he said, I don't know. And we sort of looked around, but most of the crew were secular, and
Uh-huh.
so they wouldn't know. And we decided between ourselves that it doesn't matter which direction we pray, God will accept our prayers.
Absolutely. Allah is everywhere.
So we uh, we prayed, and as we were heading towards Gaza, we uh, sort of kept up our prayers, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody said rather sneeringly, "Oh, is uh, is God going to get us to Gaza? Is he our secret weapon?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, you may mock, but I can feel he's looking after us." And
Absolutely.
then a, a, a few people would just sneered it, and some secular people can be quite cruel. But anyway, we continued on our journey,
Mm-hmm.
and as night fell, we were surrounded by Israeli gunboats, and
Mm-hmm.
it was, we were our signals just were jammed. Our phones went down. We had
Mm-hmm.
no communication. We were stuck in the middle, bobbling around in the Eastern Mediterranean. And I said to Aki, "Well, this is it, isn't it?" I said, we're going to get blown to smithereens."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Yes." And I said, mind you, if we're doing this in defense of Palestine, surely that will put us in good stead with the big fellow. And he said, yeah, he said, you're right. He said, we'll be martyrs, inshallah.
Inshallah.
And then he said, I don't believe it. He said, I think the Israelis are going to send us to paradise. Well, after the irony of this, and everybody around us was really white-faced, and you know, a lot of people were concerned, thinking that they were having their final seconds on earth. And there the pair of us were the Muslims laughing at the thought that we were about to meet our maker, our creator, and of all the people to send us into his arms, it would be the Israelis, and the irony just but as dawn broke, for some reason which has never been explained, the Israelis just sailed away. And so the two boats, we were bobbling around saying, well, what do we do now? And it was decided, let's get to Gaza. When we sailed into Gaza, the Palestinians were more than 100,000 were in the
Really?
tiny little harbour,
Amazing.
waiting, really, you know, and they cheered when we arrived. And our boats were the first boats that they had seen enter their harbour from the outside world for the first time in more than 40 years. It was incredible.
Amazing. Amazing. Amazing.
And then we saw all this giant posters all over with the faces of all the crew on these posters. I don't know how they got our photographs, but they were. And I said to Aki, I said, not only did we not think we were going to make it, I said, the Palestinians didn't think we were going to make it either. I said, look at all of those. And these were the images of martyrs. So I think that they thought that we were going to get blown up as well. But it was an incredible moment and great excitement, and then we met Ismail Haniyeh, who presented us all with a gold medal, and a few days later we were all issued with Palestinian passports.
Amazing achievement. Amazing achievement. Amazing achievement.
Diplomatic passports, so that he said, you know, you were our ambassadors, and that was absolutely incredible as well.
And have you visited Palestine after that in this past decade?
Yes, I went in 2010 after after one of the wars in Gaza, and I went with a group called Viva Palestina, and we took a couple of hundred or so ambulances over North Africa and into Gaza, and that was overland. So we broke the siege of Gaza by sea and by land. Now I want to break it by air. So if any of your listeners have a helicopter or a small light plane, let's do business.
Inshallah, you'll achieve this feat as well.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. If coming to Afghanistan, I'll just quickly ask this, then afterwards we'll hop on to the current situation in Pakistan and Ukraine. You recently, just a few months back, you happened to visit Afghanistan. Can you tell us the purpose of your visit? How did it happen? How many days did you spend over there? What were your operations over there? And what were your thoughts on your way back? You know, your takeaway from the mission.
Yeah. Well, I went into Afghanistan with Imam Qasim, who is head of the Al Khair
Mhm,
Foundation, and
mhm,
he's very big on education. And
mhm.
the first people that we wanted to see were in the education ministry, and we got straight in to see the education minister.
MashaAllah.
And said, that the charity has a mission to build girls' schools, and
Amazing. MashaAllah. MashaAllah.
we wanted to know why the girls' schools were closed. And he said it was a postponement, and he said it's temporary. He assured us it would be temporary, and that unfortunately, we still haven't seen any
Yep.
announcement to say
Yep.
otherwise.
It's still the same status quo.
But we found it very difficult to find anyone who agreed with this decision,
Mhm,
which I believe came out of Kandahar, to close the schools. It's been roundly condemned, predictably by the West, but roundly condemned by scholars throughout Pakistan
mhm,
and Afghanistan. And Justice Taqi Asmani, who I have the utmost respect for, he
mhm.
has, led the condemnation from Pakistan, saying that it's not right. Um, 14 of the provinces are actually ignoring the ruling, and girls are continued to be educated. And all
Mhm,
of the private schools are
mhm,
also ignoring the ruling.
mhm.
Um, but the other mission was to go into areas where there are no schools and
At all. Okay.
at all. And more than 4 million children uh, just under the US occupation never saw the inside of a school.
Mhm,
They talk about women's rights. Unfortunately, the practice of child brides and forced marriages was evident. But these are practices that the Taliban have outlawed.
mhm.
And while I wouldn't say that they're the great promoters of women's rights, they
Yep.
certainly have put the rights of women uh, forward in terms of ending forced marriages and ending the practice of children
Mhm,
being sold off as child brides by their
mhm,
parents. So, they are moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, the education thing is still a sticking point.
mhm.
But the country is a lot more secure than it
Alhamdulillah.
has been in more than 20 years.
Yep.
And I traveled overnight from Kabul to Kandahar in a car with my two guides
Mhm,
uh, and driver. I refused an armed escort, and
mhm.
I tend to think if you hang around with men with guns, you'll end up being shot. So I don't like having armed guards around. So we travelled and we were safe. And we went into Logar province, one of the most bombed
Loga. Yep. Yep.
provinces in Afghanistan, where thousands of mosques had been razed to the ground. So
Unfortunately.
Imam Qasim announced a masjid building program as well. So we went in all over. Unfortunately, the day after Imran Khan had been ousted,
Yep.
some missiles came over uh, from Pakistan, and
Mhm,
we were told uh, terrorists were killed.
mhm.
Well, 20 of those terrorists were under the age of 10. You
Ah,
know,
unfortunate.
it,
Un-
I
Very
was
unfortunate.
so I just thought that these sort of night raids and bombings would not happen under Imran Khan's watch, and
Yeah,
unfortunately,
because as you know, Imran spoke so louder against the drones and all that stuff, and even during his tenure, if you see the stats, you know he refused to give the aerial corridors, and in his tenure there was no attack from Pakistani soil on the Afghan soil, if I'm not wrong, and it's very unfortunate the way things have unfolded after him. It's just so sad. And plus, the saddest thing about Afghanistan is, number one, the West does what it does best. It divides and rule. That's how they've been, dividing Muslims and bombing them, and then they make these flashy Hollywood movies. That's what they do. Once when they ruin a country, then later on, they hire big shots and they make famous movies, of which I'm strongly against. I recently somebody made me see Charlie Wilson's War with Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts, and I wasn't impressed at all. Although I'm a big time fan of both the actors, but that's what America does best. It ruins people's lives, and then it makes movies on it, trying to tell the world how good it is. Uh, I'll come to this as well. The reason why Afghanistan perhaps is still struggling, although it will take time, is also because Biden has blocked the Afghan people's money.
oh, Raheem, this makes me so angry. There is no cash in Afghanistan.
Yep,
The cash points, the money machine in the wall machines, uh, they don't work. And I was on my computer one night and I wanted to do a piece of online shopping to buy something over in the UK that would be waiting for me when I got back. And I couldn't even make the transaction because I was in Afghanistan. My husband
sure.
was delighted. He said, "Stay," because you can't spend anything. But on the more serious note, there's a huge malnutrition problem,
Absolutely,
humanitarian crisis, and the Taliban do not want to govern a country where the people are holding out their hands begging for food.
Ab-
No,
absolutely,
they want to turn it into a productive economy, and the irony is, and I think that this is part of what has prompted Biden to freeze the assets. Afghanistan has the capabilities to become a very rich country very soon because
absolutely,
um, they have identified up to $3 trillion worth of lithium in
absolutely.
Afghanistan. And lithium, according to Elon Musk, one of the world's richest men, he
Yep.
said lithium is the new oil.
Absolutely, and that's what the US was there for.
Well, they couldn't get their hands on it while they were in occupation,
Yeah,
and they do not want to see the Afghans get it. Um,
absolutely.
but I think that the Afghans will do what the Saudis did when they discovered their oil.
Yep,
Uh, they had a big mistrust of the West, and so they created the Saudi oil companies and kept a control on the oil, which was a very astute move from their point of view. That's why the world's most powerful man, Joe Biden,
yep,
went belly dancing across the red carpet in Jeddah to fist
yep,
bump the hand of the Crown Prince,
yep,
Mohammed bin Salman,
yep.
because, he who controls the oil controls the world. And
Absolutely,
because of this war in Ukraine, Biden had to go cap in hand. And of course,
absolutely.
the Afghans, I suspect, will be just as cautious when they come to mine the lithium. You know, they want
Absolutely.
to control it, and I think that they would love nothing more than to see their country do well. And if Afghanistan does well, Pakistan will do well.
Automatically, absolutely.
And of course, China wants to open the old Silk trade route, which
Yep,
again would benefit Afghanistan and Pakistan.
yep,
But of
yep,
course,
absolutely.
there are those who do not want to see any wealth or trade.
You know,
Um,
the Western forces are eager to disturb uh, the ongoing thingy between Pakistan and China.
yes, yes. So, you know, I think that Afghanistan and Pakistan are on the cusp of great things. But
Absolutely.
unfortunately, at the moment, they're being held back. The Afghans are being held back by America. And of course, America is politically meddling and interfering in Pakistan as well.
If my grandmother, may she rest in peace, my grandmother always used to tell me that, son, always remember, before the break of dawn, there is always a night to go through. So,
Yeah,
inshallah, the dawn will break very soon.
inshallah. I really
Inshallah.
hope so, you know, because I have a great love for Pakistan, and it's like between it and Afghanistan, it's like a second home. And I really would like to see uh, Pakistan do well. The population um, is full of people with a can do attitude, and I think that they could become the greatest workforce in the world if only they were allowed.
Yep. And next time when you're in Peshawar, we'll together go to see a movie in a local cinema.
Right? Okay. Can you do that now?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, have the Pashtuns sorted out their dilemma with music? Because I know
Um,
the Pashtuns love music, but they despise musicians.
the same. They are still the same. They'll watch movies and they just love music. They just love to dance. And but when somebody says, I'm a musician, they just can't, see that person happy. It just runs in the blood. If coming to Imran Khan, what do you what do you think triggered his ouster by the external and internal forces? Do you
I
think
think
that's do you think he was ousted because he toured Russia, or do you think it was something else?
I think it was several different factors, and I don't think it had anything to do with the Russian trip, which, let's face it, was bad timing and had been planned long in advance. I mean, the night
True,
before the invasion, I was telling people there is no way Russia will invade. And
true,
I genuinely believed that. And I think that had Imran Khan known what was going to happen, he would have cancelled his trip.
true, true,
But I don't think that the Russian thing didn't help. But I think that it was decided uh,
yep,
a year or so ago when it was suggested in an interview that maybe the American military bases that had all been closed down in Afghanistan, maybe they could transfer some of those bases along the border of Pakistan.
true.
And he said two words: absolutely not. And
Exactly, exactly.
I
That's what
believe
triggered. Yep. Yep. True.
That
True.
would
True.
have triggered it.
True.
And, America has been involved with about 30 regime changes or attempts
Absolutely. Yep.
in the last 50 years. So they
Yep.
have previous.
Yep. Yep.
And
True.
in fact, I think that, they helped Musharraf uh, in his military coup.
True.
Um, and so I uh, I think that Imran wouldn't toe the line with the Americans,
Yep.
and that put him in their sights. He also wouldn't toe the line with some senior military figures,
True.
and
Yep.
there's obviously been a battle of wills, but
Yep.
when it comes to integrity, my money
Yep.
is always on Imran Khan for no
Yep.
other reason than he has a huge love for his country and
Absolutely.
not work against it.
Absolutely. 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 If uh, when you're not writing, you're definitely touring the world, giving lectures in campuses and different institutions. You're also a humanitarian. You've raised your voice for women issues. You've raised your voice and advocated for Afia Siddiqui all around the world, including Pakistan, with holding press conferences. And also, you've raised your voice for the Rohingya refugees and the Syrian conflict. How do you multitask, and what are the challenges women are facing? What is your study of that thing?
Um, it's very easy to be self-motivated because there are so many injustices going around in the world, and people say, yeah, but there's too many or it's too overwhelming. What can one person do? One person can't do a great deal, but if we all band together, we can achieve great things. But again, never underestimate your own importance as an activist. I'm just thinking of the American civil rights movement that erupted in the 1950s, 60s when a woman got on a bus in Montgomery um,
Yep.
and was told to move out of her seat and to go and sit in the black area. And she just said no. And
Yep.
that one little act of resistance triggered a whole movement. So never underestimate your own abilities.
Very true.
That to all of your listeners. Women are having a very hard time in the world today, and it's not just in the East, it's in the West as well. It's North and South. And until men learn to respect us and treat us
True.
as they want their mothers and sisters to be treated,
True.
then we're having serious problems. And this harassment, oppression, uh, exploitation comes from some of the most powerful men in the world to even the most humble man in the world. So, we do have a tough time, and there are scandals erupting everywhere, and it's time that men started standing up for women. Well, some
True.
are, but
True.
I keep telling people we are half the world, and we gave birth
Absolutely.
to the other half. So for goodness
Absolutely.
sake,
Absolutely.
um, yeah, equality is for everyone, not just for
Absolutely.
men, not just for women. It's for everyone, and
Right.
as Muslims, we have the greatest role models with
Yep.
the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him,
Yep.
his wife Khadija. So many great role models
Yep. Yep.
there for us to follow. That as Muslims, we should actually be leading the way in promoting women's rights as well as equality.
True. Right. Right. If before I come to your book writing, and then towards the end of the interview, I'll quickly would like to take your take on two things that are going on. One, the Ukraine war, and second, the China-India tension that is going on.
The Ukraine war should never have happened. Um, Russia had no business invading Ukraine. Uh, when Vladimir Putin in December said he wanted to talk with Joe Biden should have sat down and talked with him. I don't
True.
think that this war would have gone ahead if Angela Merkel had still been Chancellor of Germany,
True.
because she was a highly respected figure and she could control Putin to a certain extent.
True.
She
True.
spoke
True.
his language, she knew what his triggers were. And unfortunately, America has pushed the Ukrainian people into a war they cannot win.
True.
And, uh, and also a war which Russia cannot win either,
True.
because the
True.
Ukrainians are very courageous and they will fight for every piece of Ukrainian land, and they won't stop fighting. Um,
True.
we need to get both sides together, and the United Nations, which isn't fit for purpose, needs to get some teeth and a backbone and force both sides together to sort out a a peaceful way out of this
True.
bloodshed.
True. True. And the China-India tension. Your take on that?
Well, again, the world needs to get round and rally round and diffuse that tension. Nancy Pelosi's trip was so ill-advised. Why it was like watching somebody looking for a gas leak with a lighted match. It's what the hell is she doing there? And
True.
the world needs to be kinder,
True. 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 True.
and we need to respect each other and
True.
respect our differences and celebrate our differences instead of
True.
looking with
True.
suspicion.
True. Coming to your book writing, Yvonne, you're also a very celebrated, renowned author. I've read one book of yours, which is an autobiography, In the Hands of Taliban. Apart from this, tell us a bit about your other books. One was Prophet Muhammad, the book that you wrote.
Yeah.
Tell us about your books, the,
Well,
the non-fiction and the fiction, both.
the book that I wrote on the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, called "Don't Shoot the Messenger," I gave the manuscript to Justice Taqi Asmani because
Beautiful.
I wanted him to make sure that there was nothing in there that could
Yep.
be
I
misconstrued.
get you. I get you. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And he was able to point out a couple of weak hadith that I'd used, and to use stronger ones. And um, I have the utmost respect for him.
Yep.
And the book was published, but unfortunately the publisher is an academic publisher, and for some reason they have really high prices. So I've told everybody, don't buy the book, it's too expensive. Go and order it in your local library and read it there. But I will try and get a more a
It,
publisher who can put it more mainstream rather than just academic. But what was different about the book? The book was written from the perspective of the enemies of our beloved prophet, rather than people who, would eulogize him. And so what I did is I looked at all the arguments and all the criticism against him
Mhm,
and was able to rebut each point
mhm.
with facts and figures. And for instance, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was probably the first abolitionist when it came to slavery. And the at every opportunity, the Quran tells people, free the slave, free the slave.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
and it nearly goes as far as to ban slavery, which now is banned anyway. But slavery wasn't banned in America until about the 18th, 19th
Yep,
centuries. It
yep,
was,
yep.
and and uh, and slavery was in evidence long before Islam came on the scene.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
the detractors of Islam will try and portray Islam as a religion which has slaves. And
yeah,
in fact, the Christians were at it long before Islam
yeah.
came on the scene, and
Yep.
and the people before them. So that was opening, and also the Islam triggered the Renaissance in Europe,
Yep.
and people are surprised at that. And if you listen to some of the far right politicians in Europe, they'll say the Muslims are coming. It's sorry, they've already been. And they've already influenced, and they've brought architecture, engineering,
Yeah.
science,
Yep.
medicine, all these things.
Yep.
And
Yep. Yep.
so, we, as Muslims, we're not very good at telling people
Yep. Yep. Yep.
about the history of Islam and the influence Islam has had on the world today. So
Absolutely.
what I
It
was,
has had. It has had. The medicine has come from Muslim scientists. Astrology. They've had their contributions in astrology, in medicine, so on and so forth.
yeah, absolutely. And as I
Eh,
say, uh, Islam triggered the European Renaissance when they moved from the Dark Ages to a period of enlightenment.
Yep. 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 If you're also the Secretary General of the European Muslim League, which has its capital headquarters in Milan and Switzerland.
Mhm.
Briefly, if you can elaborate about its interventions and operations.
Well, it has peace ambassadors in many countries around the world, and we're really just about promoting the message that Islam is a religion of peace and
Mhm.
education and equality. The Holy Quran makes it crystal clear that we women are equal in spirituality, worth, and education.
Absolutely.
So, and of course, as I said to the education minister in Afghanistan, when I learned about Islam, one of the first things that I discovered was that the very first word in the Holy Quran was Iqra, read.
Ikra, yeah. Read, yep.
Yeah. So, it was, yeah, um, it's a great religion.
Yep, yep, yep. Sure it is. In the end, we would love to know about your beekeeping hobby and your TikTok fascination. I see you uploading on TikTok every now and then.
Yes, well, um, I like to keep up with trends and find out what uh, young people are up to, or what is motivating them. I'm told that Twitter is passé now, but I still like to use Twitter. TikTok is one of the ways forward. I just like to try and keep ahead and find out what the new trends are. Beekeeping, unfortunately, I've had to shelve that for the time being because I got stung so many times that, far from building up an immunity uh, to bee stings, I lost it. And so now I have to be very careful. So it's I have no immunity to bee stings now.
I see, I see. Ma'am Yvonne, it was my honor and my pleasure to have you today on this interview. I, from the core of my heart, thank you for your precious time. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much.
I really enjoyed it, and I just hope that all your listeners enjoy our interaction. I've really enjoyed it, and give my salams to everyone,
Absolutely,
and
I will.
messages: be kind. Everybody, start being kinder.
Absolutely, absolutely. Your one line of message to the world, whoever's watching, if any.
Be kind. Be kinder.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Rahi.